Welcome to Fed Snacks, serving up bite-sized insights from former feds. On today's menu, Paul Blahusch, former Chief Information Security Officer for the Department of Labor, now President and CEO at B&A Cybersecurity Consulting.
What I ended up doing was there was an opening they were building what was at that time something unique. It was a cybersecurity team in Bureau of Labor Statistics. This was 1999. I was the second in command then at this new IT security office. And I think when I joined at the time, it was just myself and the gentleman who was my boss, the IT security officer. So we were a team of two. So we spent like the next 4 or 5 years really building up that team. Right? We brought in some people who could do policy, people who could do incident detection and response, people who could do security assessments. And so it was great building that team up. I really enjoyed that work. We had a great team. And a lot of the sort of things I've taken with me in my career, were kind of born at that time, whether it was, how to partner with mission areas to make sure that cybersecurity is an enabler, not a blocking thing. Trying to make sure that the organization as a whole, right, has some security awareness and is security focused. Bringing in, the tools and techniques, and also being cost conscious. So those things have really drawn forward, and they were born out during that time, leading that cybersecurity group at BLS. It's 2018, and happy at BLS, but some folks at the Office of the Chief Information Officer at Department of Labor contacted me and said, "Hey, we've got an opportunity that we'd like to bring you over for a detail to be the Chief Information Security Officer or acting Chief Information Security Officer." And that position gave me a kind of this broader perspective on not only cybersecurity, but also the workings of the agency. It's really working across the federal government with not only the other agencies, but also private industry that's providing services to the federal government. How do we raise the tide for all these boats to make sure everyone's more secure?
So you went from a two-person team at the Bureau of Labor and Statistics to CISO at the Department of Labor. What ultimately led you to leave, and what was that transition like?
Well, it was an unexpected and probably unwelcome transition. I don't fault any administration for wanting to come in and make changes. That's what they were elected for sometimes, right? I had no interest in tearing down what I had spent, years building up to a very effective cybersecurity program that was cost conscious, that was, an organization that always considered, are we spending taxpayer money the best? But also, saying we need these things to secure the digital assets that we have in order to accomplish the mission. That was what then, was my decision point to move into in a different direction and out of federal service.
So can you describe to me what your company now does and how it does continue to support the government and how it does that?
3 main areas that we're going to work in. One is to provide, and this doesn't necessarily support the federal government, but I'll give myself a plug for this anyhow. I'll do virtual CISO type work. So if you were an organization or a business that wanted some help with doing a risk assessment or figuring out what sort of mitigation strategies would be good, or giving you advice on compliance, cybersecurity compliance things, happy to come in and do that. Now, as far as the federal government goes, I think supporting the federal government, there's 2 things with the company I started. One is that, if you're an IT services company that wants to do business with the federal government or wants to build out more business with the federal government, I can provide services of, helping with business capture, helping with evaluating what services you can provide and how they match up with a request for information or a proposal or request for proposal that a government agency put out. And the third one, and this was interesting when it was introduced to me by a couple of folks is that it's not really an IT services firm like you're seeing mostly getting awards, but it's more the underlying product or solution. Like let's say it's a software as a service solution to provide vulnerability assessment, right? Something like that, where these companies producing these services have asked me, hey, it would be valuable to us if you as a former federal CISO would give us some feedback on our solution.
What advice do you have for federal employees that might be facing the same kind of situation you were and are planning to navigate to the private sector?
Yeah, well, I'd say, first of all, to plan for the unexpected, right? That and do that now. Even if you're comfortable where you are, I'd say do some things like, build your network, right? Nurture your network of people that whether it's in other federal agencies or in private industry partners that you have. Make sure you're doing things like staying involved in organizations like an ACT-IAC or an ATARC or Cyber Guild. There's so many of them. But then if you get to the point, patience, some perseverance, and some flexibility in what you can accept, and there's a whole wide swath of opportunities out there. So don't limit yourself. Find what works for you.
Well, I appreciate that. I think that's good advice, not just for the IT world, but for really anybody that's considering looking for a new job.
Right.
Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
For more Fed Snacks, head to govciomedia.com.